just exited the MetLife building, which was originally built in the early 60s as the Pan Am building. And I'm going to cross East 45th Street and cross into public passageway on one of both sides of what's now called the Helmsley building, which was originally built as the New York Central building. It's in back of Grand Central, and it housed the headquarters of the New York Central Railroad, which owned and operated Grand Central. You can see Starbucks has blended in nicely with this classic building. I don't know if this building is a landmark as Grand Central is. So now we're walking through one of the public passageways, or semi-public. I think it's always open. The lighting in the ceiling is a relatively recent addition. It wasn't part of the original design. I recall the entire passageway being more arched, but I may be remembering incorrectly. So I'm standing across the street from the Roosevelt Hotel, which at one time was one of, I think, 4 hotels connected directly to Grand Central. This was the first hotel I ever stayed in, as opposed to a motel. I stayed in a motel for the first time, several of them, earlier in the year, 1965, but this is the first time I stayed in a hotel. You may be able to see, but maybe not, the top of the New York Central building. Not connected directly to the Roosevelt Hotel. We stayed in the Roosevelt Hotel one night only. The occasion, the 1965 World's Fair. You can see as I walk up Madison Avenue towards, I think, 47th or 49th Street, there are a number of vehicles parked partially on the sidewalk. These are police vehicles for the thousands of police who have come from all across the region and distant parts of the country, and even overseas, to attend the funeral of slain Officer Wilbert Mora. I have no idea what they're building here, but it looks like it's going to be big. As you can see, traffic is moving quite slowly northbound on Madison Avenue. This is a result of the police funeral I mentioned earlier. This is probably about as close as we're going to be able to get. I see officers walking away from St. Patrick's. We're about 2 blocks from St. Patrick's. you can see in the upper left, now about a block and a half away, the backside of St. Patrick's, or the eastern facade. I wanted to be silent while we were walking up Fifth Avenue when it was lined by and filled with thousands of police officers. And if you saw from the insignia on their motorcycles, they're from all over the Northeast. So that lasted from approximately 51st to 57th Street. We're now on the northwest corner of 57th Street and 5th Avenue. I'm going to continue towards Central Park. But I take that back. I think I'm going to walk over the Queensboro Bridge because they have, I believe, separated pedestrians and bicycles for the first time. See you later. If you can look as far as you can towards the horizon, the lower horizon, if there is such a thing. So we're looking southbound on Park Avenue from 59th Street. This is the southeast corner of Park Avenue and 59th Street. Park Avenue. To follow what I said earlier, you can see the top of the MetLife in the distance. You can see the MetLife logo. That used to be the Pan Am building, and the helicopters briefly landed on top. And then directly in front of, and maybe half the height, 2/3 the height of the MetLife building is, I think it's currently called the Helmsley Building, but it was built as the New York Central Building. Headquarters of the New York Central Railroad that built Grand Central Terminal. Their slogan, the New York Central slogan, the water level route. You can sleep. So I was prematurely optimistic earlier. The city's Department of Transportation has not yet converted the Queensboro Bridge to separate bicycles from pedestrians. As you can see, looking at the pavement markings, this is a not very wide pathway, and it's shared by pedestrians and cyclists, which often cases now includes electric assisted city bikes. One just passed us. And electric powered bikes where you don't pedal at all. And sometimes motorbikes. But this is the way the path has been, except it looks like they put down fresh markings. The plan is to make the south side of the bridge change it from vehicular traffic to either bikes or pedestrians. So, like the Manhattan Bridge, pedestrians on one side of the bridge, bikes on another side of the bridge. So this is just a brief view of the Queensboro Bridge, built around 1909. Cantilever Bridge, and on the left is the much newer Roosevelt Island tramway. Like this view up the East River. I'm standing on the walkway slash bikeway of the Queensboro Bridge, approximately mid-span. And on the left is Roosevelt Island, and all of the buildings you see have been built since the 1970s. Some of them very recently. In the more distant background, spanning this portion of the East River, is the Roselle Island lift bridge, and you can see a white vehicle passing over it now. I don't know when it was built. Let's look that up. And then in the greater distance are the Astoria houses of NYCHA, and beyond that, the Triborough Bridge. Some of you may call it the RFK or Robert F. Kennedy Bridge. It's the Triborough Bridge, built around 1936. And now you see an NYC ferry heading north on the East River towards its next stop. I'm guessing maybe 90th Street in Manhattan. It just left the Roselle Island stop. It may be going to Astoria with the next stop at 90th Street. And then on the right bank of the East River, the 4 red and white painted smokestacks is a power generating station. I don't know who operates it now. It used to be Con Ed. I don't know what the source of the power is. They make electricity, but I don't know what the source fuel is. It used to be called Big Alice in the 60s because it was built by Alice Chalmers, a manufacturer of industrial equipment like this, but also of heavy construction equipment like earth movers and road graders. And for some reason it was often the subject of jokes on The Tonight Show when that was based in New York City. At this point, we're on the Queensboro Bridge. We are looking back towards Manhattan. We're looking west, but we're about to touch down in Long Island City. Before we do, here is a view, if you can see it through the trees and the chain link fence, of the smokestacks from Big Alice in the background. But in the foreground is the Queensbridge housing development of NYCHA, one of their biggest development. I like this spot on the Queensboro Bridge because it is where the pedestrian and bike path are pretty much even with the tracks of the Astoria line, the official name for the elevated line of the N and the W. It becomes elevated after actually going through a deep tunnel under the East River at 60th Street, and then the trains go up a fairly steep grade to become elevated, and they stay elevated mostly above 31st Street in Astoria until we reach the end of the line at Ditmars Boulevard, which I've heard some people call Demetrios Boulevard. Here we have a pedestrian overpass connecting Queens Plaza North to the Queensboro Plaza Station, a transfer between the N and W and the 7. We're in Long Island City. The street sign says Queens Plaza North and 27th Street and MetLife Plaza, but this building is actually JetBlue headquarters. Was it MetLife at one point? I don't know. And then in contrast to this building's facade, which JetBlue nicely restored when they were preparing to make this their headquarters. It appears that the building is occupied by both MetLife and JetBlue. But the building across the street, which was built approximately the same time, looks in somewhat worse condition. This building is owned by the New York City Department of Education. This is Sunnyside Yard. It was originally built, I'm going to say around 1910, by the Pennsylvania Railroad to store and maintain trains that had just arrived from or were going to depart from Penn Station. What we're seeing in front of us is a newly rebuilt, really rebuilt section that is now owned and will be operated by the Long Island Railroad, which decades ago was a subsidiary of the Pennsylvania Railroad. The Long Island Railroad Storage and Maintenance Facility was built here to support the LIRR trains that will be going to and from Grand Central when the Long Island Railroad Station, that's a result of Grand Central access, is completed sometime between next year and 2030. The city did a great job of salting and maybe even plowing this two-way protected bike lane on the bridge over Sunnyside Yard. I guess this is just called the Queens Boulevard Bridge. I don't know if it even has a name. But it looks like they barely touched the pedestrian side on the left side of these bridge columns. You really have to walk serpentine to find walkable areas here. There's an Acela train. I think capable of going 180 miles or something, 180 miles an hour. I don't know, maybe going 50, 60. Pretty good.